Rise.
Good morning. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, and I now address these remarks to the members of the press. You have not been completely in accord with what I asked you to do last Friday, but you've all done me the great favor of obeying what I asked you to do with respect to the identity of the jurors, and I thank you very much for that. The first order of business after I give some preliminary remarks will be the examination one by one of the jurors. And what will happen is I will bring all of the jurors in to begin with, and they will be seated. I will make remarks to the entire panel. I will then ask that the jury be taken to their jury room, and I will one by one call the jurors and address them. And I will address them by a letter that I have developed rather than their number. Now, I realize full well that many of you who attended this trial for many, many weeks probably know these jurors. And I'm not making any further statement about what you do or don't do in terms of identifying the jurors. But I don't want any photographs taken of the jurors by the media. With respect to the rest of the audience, if you have devices, cell phones, iPads, or anything of that nature, please silence them. Please do not use them. The press is allowed to use their devices in order to make notes, but the press is not making any photographs either. I have a pool photographer as well as a pool court TV arrangement, and that's what will be used to photograph, and those materials will of course be fed and available to the press. I think if there's anything else. All right. All right. The jurors are in place in the jury room, Mr. Bailiff?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Bring me the jurors.
If the police court, Your Honor, prior to bringing that juror in, that has something on the record.
Sure. Hold for a minute. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, you have a list of questions you've distributed to us, and
yes, sir.
Of course you went through those with juror
Z. Or X.
X. I knew it was one of those last letters. Juror X. The third question you say, did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comments about the merits of this case before your verdict?
Yes, sir. And
clearly the juror didn't understand what the word merits meant.
I disagree with that, but you may make your record about that. I think the juror understood what was being asked. And frankly, in some of the materials that we've exchanged back and forth about questions, you yourself have used the word merit. So I don't think she was confused.
Well, Your Honor, occasionally I make a mistake. I think in this case, perhaps you've made a mistake. And if you would just respectfully use the words, did make any comment about the case before your verdict. Just leaves out their judgment about merits. They don't know if merits is a legal word.
I will take what you say into account, but I have already examined one juror using that term, and you now say that that term confused the juror. You have that on the record, and certainly would be able to argue that to any of the appellate courts that review what I do here, but my intention is to use the language that I used with the juror I've already interviewed.
But, Your Honor, you went and did a follow-up question, our request, which elaborated on what that meant. And certainly, after you asked that question, we think that clarified it, and you could use merits or anything else about the case and deal with both issues. I just think it's going to require us, based on statements that these jurors have given to SLED, to ask very specific questions.
Okay, I understand what you're asking. Let me ask you this, Mr. Harpootlian. Do you happen to have the transcript of Friday's proceedings?
I don't think so.
State, do you all happen to have a transcript of Friday's proceedings?
Your Honor, we're looking right now.
Belay that. I've got a copy. Let me look at it for a minute to see what I did in clarification, and so just pause for a minute. Let me look at that.
Yes, Your Honor.
I look at this transcript, and the only thing I note.
Wait, there's
Hey.
Okay. Okay, these
Oh,
were the
okay, hang on.
follow-up questions.
Okay, all right. I said this. I asked the attorneys for any further commentary about the questions I asked, and I have been asked to ask one more question, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to read you a memorandum by the state to counsel for the defense, and then ask you about it. All right?
You got the
And then here's what I read. Per Chief Attorney Waters, please be advised that the attorney for Juror X has told us that his client says that prior to the defendant's testimony, his client did hear Clerk Hill say words to the effect of, quote, looks like the defendant is going to testify, this is an important day, close quote. Or, quote, this is an epic day, close quote. And that there was some statement that it was rare for a defendant to testify. And then I said, Juror X, can you verify that what I've read is something you heard and told your attorney? And she said, yes, ma'am. Very good. Did these statements have any impact on your verdict? No, ma'am. Very good. I will ask that question. I didn't change well, I've read you what I asked. I will be glad to do that again.
Your Honor, different jurors say different things based on the memorandums we've received.
I won't say you told your attorney or anything like that, but I will ask about that statement having been made.
Your Honor, just for the record, we believe the term merits is a term of art, just as if you asked them was there probable cause. Again, or anything else, we're not asking you to open Pandora's box.
I hear what you say, and I will take it into account.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Waters, anything on your behalf?
I do not have anything further, Your Honor. We believe the term is self-explanatory.
Thank you, sir. You know, Mr. Harpootlian, I'll have to go to my screen to do this other, but the third question will read, did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before the verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that's what I'll ask. All right. All right, Mr. Bailiff, bring me the jury. Yes.
It's the same thing except without,
Yeah.
basically.
Juror Z, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the State versus Murdaugh jury. I wanted to make a few opening remarks to you before I question each of you about the matter. You have done absolutely nothing wrong. None of you, not any of you. You didn't ask to serve, but you served and did your duty. This was an unusually difficult trial because of its length. 6 weeks is almost unheard of in South Carolina as the length of a case. It was difficult because of the intense publicity and public interest in the case. It was difficult because of the complexity of testimony and exhibits in the case. And you acquitted yourself honorably. So this question today is not about anything you did wrong. Please be assured of that. I respect you and I respect your service. Today, I'm going to ask you to do something that's difficult. This case is unique. Most of the time, if there's some issue about improper conduct or contact with a juror, it comes up immediately. The judge puts questions to the juror and perhaps to the person who may have made an improper comment, and then you go on with, to verdict. Or sometimes it's very shortly after the verdict is rendered. And again, the judge questions the affected jurors and the supposed interference and makes a ruling right then and there on either a new trial or a mistrial. Now here, we are almost a year after your beginning of service on this case. And that makes it mighty difficult for you to do something I'm going to ask you to do, and it's this. Today, I ask you to focus your attention. What is that? Mr. Bailiff, what is that noise?
I'm not sure.
Is that the sound system doing
I
that?
believe it's the core sound system.
This is the funkiest sound system in the world, so you just have to keep up with it. I've had trouble in every case I've ever tried with the sound system. So, jurors, if something happens and the sound system goes haywire, we'll stop for a minute until it stops. Now, as I was saying, I want you to focus your attention as you answer the questions I'm going to ask you on your 6 weeks of experience as a juror in this case, and on the point in the trial where the judge charged you, and on your verdict as you rendered it on March the 2nd, 2023. That's what I want the focus to be. And again, I know I'm asking a lot to have you cast yourself back into that time, but that's what the questions I'm asking are about that time and not about this time. There has been so much drama about this matter since the verdict was rendered, and my heart goes out to everyone, the lawyers and you who are in this trial, that I can't help. But I've been asked by the Supreme Court to take a look at this issue. The appeal is on pause until I do, and I've got to do my duty as I see it. And you do yours as I know you see it. So I thank you very much in advance for, again, the terrible inconvenience of calling you all back together now. But it's very essential to completing the record about this case and placing it before the appellate authorities as it needs to be. So in advance, I thank you. What I'm going to do now is dismiss you to the jury room, and one by one, I will call you, and I will refer to you by a letter that I have just assigned you that isn't your jury number and certainly isn't your name. You know, these people in the media saw y'all all through the trial. They probably know who you are. But I'm trying to do my duty as I see it when I make your appearance here anonymous to the record. And only the clerk, the court reporter will have a sealed document by me indicating what the key means in terms of your juror number and your name. So I'm doing everything I can do about this matter. But it goes without saying that your business is your own business. You don't have to interview with a soul, not lawyers, not media, not anyone after this matter. That choice is purely yours. And I will respect that and protect that to the best I can if anything comes up afterwards. All right, you may go to the jury room. All right, Mr. Bailiff, bring me Juror Z.
One other matter.
Yes.
One of the individuals sitting in the jury box called this the next jury liar publicly. I'd ask that that be Mr. Bland and his partner, cohort, not sit behind her or near her while she's testifying.
I object.
Well, just a minute.
Your Honor, I object to him speaking.
One moment. We're not going to have a big colloquy about this. You keep your seat for a moment, Mr. Harpoot.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bland, you do the same. Mr. Bender, is there a seat over next to you?
There is.
Mr. Bland, will you go over and sit next to Mr. Bender, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
For the record, I have some people in the jury box. Two of them are SLED agents. One of them is the media consultant, and one of them is attorney for several of the jurors, Mr. Bland. And that's being done at my direction.
And Justice told you have Scott Mongillo, Blaine Richter, also in the jury box.
Very good. Yes, sir. That's fine. All right. Bring me Juror Z. Juror Z, you may take the witness box after you are sworn. Step over here to the clerk and she will administer the oath.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Please sit down.
Juror Z, I will ask you some questions, and there are no right or wrong answers. The truth is what I seek, and That is the truth of what you experienced in relation to these questions at the State versus Murdaugh trial. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. That verdict was read in open court by the foreperson of the jury. And then the court said this: Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, let it be known by raising your hand. The transcript then indicates that the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? And each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate statement about your verdict at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
If yes, what did Ms. Hill say?
To watch his actions.
To watch his actions. What else?
To watch him closely.
To watch him closely. Anything else you remember?
There is, but I can't remember.
Okay, that's fine. Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023, in any way with any influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case? Want me to
Yes,
read it
ma'am.
again?
Yes, please.
All right. Was your verdict influenced in any way by the communications of the clerk of court in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And how was it influenced?
To me, it felt like she made it seem like he was already guilty.
All right. And I understand that. That's the tenor of the remarks she made. Did that affect your finding of guilty in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Be at ease. Those are my questions are submitted to the juror. Are there any reactions, further questions, and so forth? If there are, and you would like to voice them, I can ask the juror to retire to the jury room. Just tell me whether I need to do that. All right, sir.
Your Honor, can we ask the juror we need to put some things on the record.
All right. Take the juror to the jury room, please. Yeah, that's fine. Mr. Waters.
Yes, ma'am. Your Honor, in the affidavit that was given by this particular juror, paragraph 10 said, I had questions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt, but I vote guilty because I felt pressured by the other jurors. We would request an inquiry as to that, which is how, when this motion was filed, she expressed the basis for her verdict, which obviously this answer is a little different now. So we would request a brief inquiry from the court as to that specific issue.
All right.
Thank you, Your
All
Honor.
right. Mr. Harpootlian?
Your Honor, as to two things. The first thing is, he is correct. She gave an affidavit. We would ask Your Honor to let her read her affidavit to refresh her memory of, she said other things. They're very detailed in here. We'd ask you to, and let me hand up to the court, a copy of her affidavit and ask you to have her read it before she's asked any other.
What I have here from Mr. Waters, for the record, Mr. Waters, what I've been handed for the record is something, affidavit of juror, now referred to as Z. It was taken August the 14th, 2023. It was sworn before Holly Miller, paralegal for Mr. Harpootlian, and he would like for me to give that to the juror and ask her to read it and then ask her about it. I'm inclined to do that, but I want to hear from you first.
Your Honor, again, if they want to refresh the recollection, that's fine with the state, so we have no objection to that.
Very good. It will be done.
Your Honor, also we would ask that you not ask the question that Mr. Waters asked you to ask, because it violates Rule 606B, which provides, upon an inquiry into the validity of a verdict or indictment, a juror may not testify to the effect of anything upon that or any other juror's mind or emotions.
What was the question he asked?
If you look at that affidavit,
It's paragraph 10, Your Honor.
Paragraph 10.
It's in the very affidavit.
she said she was influenced by other jurors.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to ask her about that. I'm going to give her the affidavit, and then I'm going to question her about it.
And we would, for the record, indicate that we object to that under 606B.
Your Honor, from our perspective, she's put an
And
issue.
you're the one that asked me to have her look at this affidavit, but you're telling me I can't question about it? I deny that objection.
Your Honor, if it's something that's inadmissible, you should not ask her about it. And
Well, you want me to admit it and have her examined
No,
on
I
it.
want you to have her read it to refresh her memory.
We're quibbling, Mr. Harper, we're quibbling about things that I'm not going to take time to quibble about. My ruling is, pursuant to your request, I am going to allow the juror to examine her affidavit, and then I'm going to question her about it. That's my ruling. Your objection is overruled.
For the record, I just want to note, Your Honor, just for the record,
You noted 606. I hear you noted.
and in no way waiving anything or opening any door by asking you to let her examine.
That's for a higher court than me to decide.
Well, I understand that, and that's why I want to make sure when they read this transcript, there's no confusion. I'm not asking you to put that into evidence. I'm asking you to
Well,
let
I
the
don't
jury
see how in the world I can question the juror about something and not put it into evidence. You can't have your cake and eat it too, Mr. Harpootlian. You could have been very satisfied with the answers that were already given, but you have chosen to ask about this.
Call the request.
Denied.
Your Honor, all the time we ask witnesses to examine a prior statement.
Mr. Harpootlian, I made my ruling. Please take your seat. All right. Bring me Juror Z. Get me another copy.
It's in here.
Yeah.
It's in here.
Yeah. Madam Juror, you gave an affidavit to a representative of Mr. Harpootlian on August the 14th, 2023. And I have this in my hand at the present time. And I'm going to hand it to you. I'm going to ask that you read it. Tell me when you completed reading it. And then I'm going to ask you some questions. You're going to see 4 little boxes on this affidavit. They are your name and the names of 2 of the jurors. I will strike that out before it appears in the record, just so you understand. Mr. Baird, please pass this to the juror. Take a moment to read this again when you have completed reading. Yes, ma'am. Very good. The first paragraph, of course, is a statement that you are a juror in the case. Second paragraph says, toward the end of the trial after the President's Day break, but before Mr. Murdaugh testified, the clerk of court, Rebecca Hill, told the jury, quote, not to be fooled, unquote, by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's attorneys, which I understood to mean that Mr. Murdaugh would lie when he testifies. Is that what your recollection is of that statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything in the statement that, on reflection, you think is not correct?
No, ma'am.
All right. Number 3, she also instructed the jury to, quote, watch him closely, quote, immediately before he testified, including, quote, look at his actions, quote, and, quote, look at his movements, quote, which I understood to mean he was guilty. Is that an accurate recitation of your view of the matter?
Yes, ma'am.
Number 4, paragraph 4. Immediately after he testified, the foreperson said Mr. Murdaugh was crying on cue. Is that an accurate statement of what you saw and heard?
Yes, ma'am.
5, the foreperson criticized the former foreperson for handing Mr. Murdaugh a box of tissues when he was crying on the stand while testifying about his murdered son. She told the jury we cannot interact with Mr. Murdaugh because that's what the defense wants us to do. Do you still stand by that recitation of that conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Number 6, the jury frequently discussed the case during breaks before deliberation. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Number 7, toward the end of the trial, Ms. Hill came into the jury room a lot. Is that your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Hill and the foreperson had private conversations on multiple occasions. The foreperson would tell the bailiff that she needed to speak with Ms. Hill. Ms. Hill would arrive, and then she and the foreperson would go to another room for a private conversation. The conversations typically lasted 5 to 10 minutes. The foreperson never said anything about the content of the conversation. For example, she never communicated logistical information after these conversations. This happened 2 or more times, more frequently towards the end of the trial. Is that still your recollection of the interaction?
Yes, ma'am.
9. When we began deliberations, Ms. Hill told us this shouldn't take us long, quote. And if we deliberated past 11 p.m., we would be taken directly to a hotel. We had driven from our homes that morning and were not prepared to stay overnight. Additionally, smokers on the jury asked to be allowed to take smoke breaks, but they were told they could not smoke until after the deliberations were complete. Did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Including the business about the smokers?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Number 10. I had questions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt, but voted guilty because I felt pressured by the other jurors. Is that an accurate statement about your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. After the verdict and immediately before sentencing, Ms. Hill pressured the jury to speak as a group to reporters from a television show. Is that an accurate statement of what she said?
Yes, ma'am.
And did some jurors decline to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me get back. Where are my questions? Juror Z, I asked you previously, was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023 influenced in any way by communications from Becky Hill, the clerk of court? You answered that question, yes. In light of what you said in the affidavit, which is I had questions about Mr. Murdaugh's guilt but voted guilty because I felt pressured by the other jurors. Is that answer that I just read a more accurate statement of how you felt?
Yes.
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you do stand by the affidavit?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Thank you. All right. You may go to the jury room. And let me just explain to you what the procedure will be. I'm calling the rest of the jurors, of course, one by one. When I'm finished with that, I will bring you out as a group one more time, and then you're free to leave. You don't have to stay. Okay? Very good. You may go to the jury room. What's that?
Before this juror is excused, but after she steps out, I'd like to address the court.
All right. You may be excused.
Redacted copy I can hand up to the court if you want to make that use of the court's exhibit for this witness.
That's good. What I'm going to try to do is redact as the as I did in the, as you did in the document that you sent me, the identifying thing redacted now.
He has an extra copy of the redacted.
I have it
Oh,
right here.
oh, good. That's great. That would be wonderful. Show it to Mr. Harpootlian.
I've seen it.
Very good. Thank you. That's the one I will give to the court reporter, but I think you can see that I asked off of it. This is a court's exhibit.
3.
Court's exhibit 3.
And Your Honor, just to be clear, that does still have the juror numbers in it. It does not have the letters.
What I'd ask you to do, Elizabeth, is take off the juror numbers, just strike them through, and then where it says affidavit of juror and gives a number, just strike that out and you can put in pen Z. Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Harpootlian.
Your Honor, we objected to the questioning because this juror gave 2 statements under oath, one in an affidavit and one here to you today. The one here today was Becky Hill influenced her verdict.
Yes.
The one she gave in an affidavit 6 months ago was based on jurors. It could be both. Your Honor picked out the one in the affidavit from 6 months ago and said, is that a more accurate statement? That presupposes and suggests to her what she should say. And we believe that this juror's testimony, and Your Honor, I'm afraid what you're going to say is, well, she said the affidavit was more accurate than what she testified under oath here today, and therefore I'm not going to consider her testimony. And I think that's where we're heading here. I'd ask you to bring her back in, explain to her there's nothing wrong with it both being true.
I decline to do that and overrule the objection. All right. Mr. Bailiff? Yes, sir. Counsel, I have to report this to you, and I'm very, very unhappy about it, but there's nothing to do but put it on the record, and then I will proceed with questioning the rest of the jurors. The jurors' cell phones were not confiscated or taken from them, and they tuned this thing in on court TV and listened to all of what just went on. So you may make whatever statement you like to make, and then I'm going to go on and question the jurors. I will tell you in advance, I am not going to stop the proceedings or do anything to interrupt them. I'm going to get the rest of this on the record. You might imagine that they no longer have their cell phones with them.
Your Honor, we have a 5-minute recess to discuss what we need to put on the record. I mean, this is.
I'm not going to take all day on this thing. I report things as they come to me. I will give you a couple of minutes, and then we're going to. They were late getting here. I didn't get to start on time like I wanted to, so I need to just calm down a little bit. But I tell you, don't take any long period of time. Court will be in recess for 5 minutes.
Rise.
Just a minute. Now, you about to do something that I've already said I'm not going to allow to happen. And that is, you've got standing next to you a member of the team that represents the juror. And I can tell you, Mr. Harpootlian, I made a ruling early on that when Mr. McCullough was in court, and when Mr. Bland was in court, that I was not going to allow the attorneys to participate in formulating the procedure for this hearing. But I have not. I indicated that I would not allow the lawyers for jurors to participate in this hearing, and so I'm not going to do that. I can just tell you that. And if what you want to do is by indirection tell me what the lawyers for the juror would say, I'm not going to accept that.
Your Honor, my understanding is she'd like to approach to ask if the juror can be excused. That's
No,
right.
not yet.
Your Honor, I actually approached,
Now, Mr. McCullough can be excused. There's still plenty of you lawyers and you can do it. I didn't want him to come to begin with, so I love him dearly, and he can go anytime. And I speak on behalf of Amy McCullough, his wife, when I tell you that.
Your Honor, I actually was here to let both of them know that I was going to ask to approach to talk about a security issue
All
very
right, well,
quickly.
if you come up here, Lord knows, I tell you what, Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time, and Murphy was an optimist. Please be seated. Let me place upon the record two things. First of all, I have made certain now that a bailiff will be in the jury room with these jurors. Why that, I announced that many times, that is the way it was to run. Why there wasn't a juror in the jury room is something I don't know, but I have asked that that be followed rigidly. I've also asked, I don't go into jury rooms, never have and never will, but I asked the bailiff to tell the jurors that they are not to discuss any testimony that any of them are giving. I asked Juror Z whether she was comfortable, because I would be glad to place her in a separate room so that she's not set upon by the rest of the jurors. She gave me a big smile and said she was perfectly comfortable. And I said, at any time you're not comfortable, you simply tell me, and I will have you placed in either my office or another jury room. So that's where I left it with Juror Z. I think she's fine, but I just wanted to make sure of that. And again, on the record, the conversation I had with her was outside the jury room. I don't go into the jury room for any reason. Very good. Mr. Bailey? Yes, sir.
For the record, Your Honor, we would ask, as jurors are brought in, we would ask that you ask them if they watched or heard anything this morning from their cell phone or other jurors about what occurred in here this morning with Juror Z, and if so, what was it?
I'm going to ask each one of them something about this. Whether it's exactly what you want, I don't know. But I will ask them something about this or make some direction to them about it. I'm not going to get into who shot John about what they said in that jury room today. I'm not going to do that. But I will try to, as best I can, deal with this question of of them hearing parts of the examination of Juror Z.
Your Honor, this morning I think you already instructed them not to discuss these matters among themselves. So if they have violated that, again, I think it's important for you to make that inquiry.
I'm going to make it as I see fit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. All right. Bring me Juror C. C.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give today to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I will address you as Juror C because I've designated from your juror number at Colleton to letters of the alphabet. I am trying to protect the anonymity of the jurors as best I can. I can't promise you with all the time that they spent seeing you all in the trial of the case that they won't figure out who is who. But on my record here, which is all I can control, I will address you as Juror C.
Yes, ma'am.
And before I begin, I understand that there may have been some cell phones activated in the jury room and the watching of the questioning of Juror Z. Did that take place?
I know people were on cell phones, but I'm not sure of what they were watching.
Were you on a telephone?
No, ma'am, I was not.
Very good. I don't think I have to go any further then. Thank you, sir. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2022. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury, and the court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your hand. The transcript then indicated that the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in the case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear Becky Hill, clerk of court for Colleton County, make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No, ma'am. I wasn't privy to any of that.
All right, sir. Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023, influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
No, ma'am, it was not.
Very good. That completes my questions. You may retire to the jury room. Bring me juror F.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have designated the jurors by a letter, and that's how I will be addressing you this morning, and I will be addressing you as Juror F. Now, I realize that you folks were on the jury for a long time, over 6 weeks, and people may know who you are, despite my efforts to protect this record. But to the extent I can, I will protect this record and your anonymity as a juror in this record. So just wanted you to understand why I'm addressing you as Juror F. This morning it was brought to my attention that some jurors were perhaps on their phones listening or looking at a broadcast of the questions to the first juror I examined, Juror Z. Is that something that you know anything about or experienced?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you activate your own phone?
Another juror did.
All right. And will what you saw and what you looked at in any way affect your testimony as you're about to give it?
No, ma'am.
Very good. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court and signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hand. The transcript that indicates that the juror complied. The jury was individually polled and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Was your answer an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Absolutely.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No, ma'am.
Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023 influenced in any way by any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
Absolutely not.
Very good. That's all the questions I have.
I'd like to discuss the matter with you before we finish with this.
You may go to your jury room and keep yourself ready. I don't know if I'm going to have any further questions, but as far as I'm concerned, the questions that I'm asking are at an end, but I need to consult with the attorneys before I can dismiss you. You may go to your jury room. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, in interviewing the clerk of court for Barnwell County, who worked as an assistant to Ms. Hill during this trial, and interviewing the alternate juror who was not, wasn't needed, wasn't dismissed for any particular reason other than it wasn't needed, both of them indicate they believe that Ms. Hill transported this juror by her personal vehicle or a bailiff's vehicle at least once during the trial. So I would ask you ask her, during the trial, did Becky Hill either drive or ride with you in a vehicle before or after court? If so, what, if anything, did Becky Hill and you discuss?
What's your position on that, Mr. Waters?
Your Honor, I have no objection to that.
Yes, all right. All right, bring the juror. This is Juror C, returning to the stand.
Your Honor, that juror?
The same juror. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Of course, you're still under oath. And I have this question for you. During the trial, did Becky Hill either drive or ride with you in a vehicle before or after court? If so, what, if anything, did Becky Hill and you discuss? Do you recall that at all?
Could you please ask that again?
Ma'am?
Could you please ask the question again?
Sure.
Sorry.
During the trial, did Becky Hill either drive or ride with you in a vehicle before or after court?
No, ma'am.
All right. Then I don't need to ask the second question. This will conclude your testimony. You are dismissed. I'm going to ask the jurors to stay with me until I've completed this process, and then you are free to go. Thank you so much.
Next one's
All right. Mr. Harpootlian's question, Juror F, is Court's Exhibit number 4. L.
L as in Lima?
L, as in Lima, yes. Mm-hmm.
Place your left hand on the Bible, right hand up, and face the court.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case today to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you so much. I have redesignated each of the jurors in the record for this case, and so I will be referring to you as Juror L, as in Lima. And, you know, y'all are all on this jury. If these people saw you for 6 weeks, they may know or be able to identify you, but I'm trying to, as best I can, protect your anonymity. You don't have to talk to anybody about this at all. That's purely your prerogative.
Justice Judge.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Juror L, before you came to testify and were sworn, you were in the jury room with the other jurors.
Yes,
I understand that some may have looked at their cell phones and looked at pictures of the proceedings as they involved the first juror who was examined. Did you see any of that?
People had their phones out, yes, ma'am.
Did you look at any of it?
No, ma'am.
All right. And I don't need to ask you anything further about that. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury, and the court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was then individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? And each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes, Madam Justice, yes.
Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes, Justice. Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear Becky Hill, the clerk of court for Colleton County, make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No, ma'am.
Was your verdict on March 2nd, 2023 influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
No, ma'am.
Very good. Juror L, thank you, and you are dismissed. I will send word back by the bailiff if there are any further questions. I always ask the lawyers that before I dismiss the juror completely and go to the next one. Please know that I will keep you in case there's anything I need to have the whole jury for at the end of this proceeding. Then you're free to go, and you don't have to speak to a soul about any of this. Thank you, sir. Anything further?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing from the defense, Your Honor.
Very good. All right, Mr. Bailiff. Bring me Juror E.
E is in Edward.
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Sir, I will be addressing you as Juror E this morning. I've designated the jurors by letter. I realize that you sat on this jury in Colleton County for a lengthy period of time, 6 weeks or better, and people may know who you are, but to the extent I can make this record a record that protects your anonymity, I am doing that. You don't have to speak to a soul about this matter after you're finished, and your service will be complete, as I'm sure you thought it would be when you rendered your verdict. I have these questions. You rendered a verdict. Oh, yes. It was brought to my attention that cell phones of the jurors were accessed in the jury room for a time, and that some were able to examine the broadcast of the testimony of the first juror called Juror Z. Was your cell phone one of those activated to look at the proceedings?
No, ma'am.
Did you look at the proceedings on any other cell phone?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Now, you rendered your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? And each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
It was.
Was your verdict based entirely upon the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No.
Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023 influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
No.
Thank you, sir. That completes my questions. You may go to the jury room. I always consult with the lawyers to see if there are any further questions. If there are not, please stay with the jury until I dismiss all of you. I'm hoping that won't be too much longer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
everything from the state? And from the defendant? Very good. Bring me Juror P, as in Paul. Yeah, that is right.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
I will be addressing you as Juror P, as in Paul. I've tried to redesignate the jurors without their number and, of course, without their name. Now, I realize you spent 6 long weeks hearing this case in open court in Colleton, and many people may know who you are anyway. But to the extent that I can make this record such that it protects your anonymity, I'm going to do that.
Yes, sir.
And you certainly are not obligated to talk with one soul about this matter after your testimony is complete.
Okay.
Juror E, I understand that before I began to receive your testimony, that at the beginning when Juror Z was being examined, that some jurors may have had cell phones and accessed the proceedings. Did you have your cell phone?
No, ma'am.
Did you examine any cell phone broadcasts?
There was a couple people, but I have no clue what they were viewing.
Yes, sir. Okay. Did any of this activity by other people in viewing this material have any impact on you in terms of your testimony today?
No, ma'am.
All right. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? And each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
It was.
Did you hear Becky Hill, clerk of court for Colleton County, make any comment about this case before your verdict?
I did. Yes, ma'am.
What did she say?
It was the day that Mr. Murdaugh was taking the stand.
Yes, sir.
And she made a comment about watch his body language.
About watch his
body language.
His body language, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
And what else?
That's all I can recall.
All right, sir. Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023 influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
No.
All right. That completes my questions, Juror E. Or
P.
P. Juror P. You may go to your jury room. You are free to refuse to discuss this with anybody. That's your prerogative. You're not required to talk about this anymore. That's your business. I've tried to do the best I could to confine this thing, but I appreciate your service. Thank you, sir, and you may go to your jury room.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any questions by the state?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
All right, by the defendant?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right. Bring me juror O. O.
Just stand right here. Would you face the clerk? To the left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to your truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Juror O. I have designated the jurors by letter in this record so as to try to protect your anonymity as best I can. Now, I realize you sat on this case for 6 weeks in open court in Colleton County, and many may know your identity. But to the extent I can, with the record of this matter, I'm trying to preserve your identity from any disclosure in this court. Juror O, I understand that several jurors may have activated their cell phone during the testimony of the first juror and looked at the proceedings. Are you aware of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you activate your cell phone?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you watch any of the other cell phones?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Very good. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? And each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023 influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this matter?
No, ma'am, it was not.
Very good. That concludes my questions. You may return to your jury room. I ask that you stay until I've completed the questioning of the jurors. You don't have to talk to a soul about this matter. It's purely your prerogative. And if you have any difficulties in that matter, let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
You are excused.
Mr.
Very quickly, I think question 2. I don't know that we did question 2.
Resume your seat. Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Very good. You're excused. Thank you, Mr. Waters. All right. Bring me juror Y. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. All right. Nothing further, Mr. Waters. Thank you.
testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Good morning, sir. I will be addressing you as Juror Y. I've tried to re-identify the jurors so as to preserve your anonymity in this record. Now, I know that you sat on this case for 6 weeks in open court, and many have seen you. They may know who you are. But as to the extent I can preserve your anonymity in the record of this case, I have tried to do so. You are completely free not to talk to a soul about this matter. That's always your prerogative. I understand that before you came out here, when the first juror to be examined was being examined, that some jurors may have activated their cell phones. Were you one who activated your cell phone?
No, ma'am.
Were you aware that some cell phones might have been activated?
I was aware after that.
All right, sir. Did you hear anything about the examination of the first juror?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? And each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
Not to me, ma'am.
Did you hear her make a comment to anybody else?
Not that I'm aware, ma'am.
All right, sir. So you don't remember any details of any conversation?
No, ma'am.
All right, sir. Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023, influenced in any way by any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. That completes my questions. I am going to excuse you. Stay together with the other jurors until I've completed my examination, and then you will be free to go. Thank you so much. Anything further from the state? From the defense?
Your Honor.
Very good. Yes, this one. Bring me Juror W.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I'll address you as Juror W. I have redesignated by letter the identities of the jurors as I question them today.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, you sat on this jury for 6 long weeks, and I'm sure that those who will there in the trial for a long period of time may know who you are. I'm just doing the very best I can to make your participation in this matter anonymous, and I will preserve that anonymity. You are free to not talk to one single soul about this if you don't want to. That's purely your prerogative.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that when the first juror was being questioned, some members of the jury, as you were back in the jury room, may have activated their cell phones. Were you one who activated your cell phone?
No, ma'am. I left my phone in the car.
And did you hear any information coming from anybody else's cell phones about that examination?
I did.
All right. Does that have any impact on the testimony you are going to give today?
No, ma'am.
Very good. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this matter?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill, the clerk of court for Colleton County, make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No, ma'am.
Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023, influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this matter?
No, ma'am.
Very good. That is the end of my questions, Madam Juror. You may go to the jury room, stay with the jury until I've completed the questioning, and then you're free to go, and you're free not to say anything you don't want to say. And if anybody upsets you or bothers you in any way about that, you just let the court know.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any further questions from the state? Any further questions?
Nothing for the defense, Your Honor.
Very good. All right. Bring me Juror Q.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
Good morning. I will be referring to you as Juror Q. I have redesignated every one of the jurors by a letter. And in that way, I'm trying to protect your anonymity in these proceedings. Now, I realize that you spent 6 long weeks hearing this case in open court in Colleton County. And some folk may know who you are, but I'm trying to protect your anonymity in these proceedings as best I can. You don't have to speak to a soul about these proceedings after you have completed your testimony. That's purely up to you. And if anybody hassles you about anything, the court stands ready to assist. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer
Yes, ma'am, it was.
about your verdict at the time?
Yes.
All right. Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes, it was.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No, ma'am.
Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023 influenced in any way with any communication by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
No, ma'am, it was not.
Very good. You may be excused, and if you would just stay in the jury room till we've completed examination of all the jurors. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Your Honor, very briefly, I know we were doing the cell phone inquiry
Yes.
with various jurors.
Yes.
I don't know if you wanted to have that with this particular juror as well.
Sure. I understand that before I began questioning you or the other jurors, on the questioning of the first jurors, some jurors in the assembly room may have activated their cell phones. Were you one of the jurors that activated your cell phone?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And was anything that you heard at that time something that has any influence or effect on the testimony you now give under oath?
No, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Anything further? You may go to the jury room. For the state.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right. Bring me Juror K.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you.
Good morning. I will be addressing you as Juror K. I redesignated each of you jurors and gave you a letter for purposes of this hearing. I'm trying to protect your anonymity as best I can. Now, I realize you sat for 6 long weeks on this case in Colleton County, and many folk may know who you are. But on the record of this matter, as best I can, I'm trying to preserve your anonymity. Please know that you don't have to answer anybody's questions about this matter in any way, shape, or form. Purely up to you. And if anything is done that you feel is harassing or makes you uncomfortable, you contact the court. We'll try to do as best I can to help in that situation.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I understand that during the testimony of the first juror, some opened their cell phones in the jury room, in our jury assembly room here. Were you one who opened her cell phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you listen to the or watch the broadcast of that first juror's examination?
We were on Facebook.
Ma'am?
I was on Facebook.
It was on Facebook, and you watched it.
No, we closed it.
All right. Did anything that you heard in that Facebook cell phone access impact or influence your testimony in this matter in any way?
No.
All right. You rendered a verdict on March the 2nd, 2023. The verdict was read in open court, signed by the foreperson of the jury. The court then said, Madam Forelady and members of the jury, if that is your verdict of each and every juror, please let it be known by raising your right hand. The transcript then indicates the jurors complied. The jury was individually polled, and each was asked, was that your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Each juror was then asked, is that still your verdict? Each juror answered yes. Was that an accurate answer about your verdict at that time?
Yes.
Was your verdict based entirely on the testimony, evidence, and law presented to you in this case?
Yes.
Did you hear Ms. Becky Hill, the clerk of court for Colleton County, make any comment about this case before your verdict?
No.
Was your verdict on March the 2nd, 2023, influenced in any way with any communications by the clerk of court, Becky Hill, in this case?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. That completes my questions. I'll let you go to the jury room now. I'll then ask the attorneys whether there are any further questions. If there are not, please just stay in the jury assembly room until I give you the word that you are all to come out one more time, and I dismiss you. Thank you, ma'am. For the state.
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Nothing for the defense, Your Honor.
Very good. This then completes the questioning of the jurors. I will ask the jurors to come into the open courtroom again, thank them, and dismiss them. Anything further before I do that?
None from the state, Your Honor.
I would move for the record that I be able to question Juror Z to follow up on what I believe the court is confused about.
Very good. I deny the request. Anything further? All right, bring me the jury. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that completes the court's examination of the jurors in this matter. I can only deeply apologize to you for having to inconvenience you so long after the trial of this case to come here, and I very much appreciate your candor. There are no right or wrong answers to the questions I asked you, but I think each of you, to the best of your ability, answered the questions, and I am deeply grateful for that, as is the state of South Carolina, as is the defendant. You don't have to speak to a soul about this matter if you don't want to. That's purely your prerogative. If there's any difficulty you encounter about this hearing that I can help with, please contact the court, and I'll be happy to do so. You are dismissed this time. You may go. Thank you for your service. Excuse the jurors. All right, Mr. Waters, is the clerk of court available?
Yes, ma'am. It's my understanding she is, and the state's prepared to call her when the court is ready.
All right.
But I believe she's at a location. Mr. Lewis is here just a block or two away, so if we take a brief recess, we'd be prepared to present her after that.
Well, I will entertain going on and taking an early lunch break. I don't know how long Ms. Hill's testimony is going to take, but if that might be a better thing than hanging around here, I think that's what I would prefer to do. Mr. Harpootlian?
Your Honor, I need sustenance.
Okay. Well, good. I think I would join you in that. What I will do is I will recess court until 1:15. Please return at 1:15.